the privilege of doing his chores. And, you know, when Mark Twain wrote that passage, I mean, he probably had no idea that it would one day form the basis for the entire global economy. But we've got the world painting our fences. You know, like they don't have their own fences that need painting. But the world is not going to accept this economy. You had Hillary Clinton, when she went over to China a couple of weeks ago, to get them, to beg them to buy our bonds, right? She'd tell them, we're all in this together, right? And basically this is what she tells the Chinese. You need to take money away from your citizens and loan it to us so we can give it to our citizens so they can use it to buy products made in your company to keep your people employed. That's the deal that we're making with them. Now, what the Chinese should say to Clinton is, you know what, I got a better idea. Why don't we just leave our money with our own people, and then they can use the money to buy their own products. That way we get to keep our stuff. You know, the way it is now, we get all the stuff, and all they get is the jobs. Well, what good are jobs without stuff? That's slavery. So they're going to figure it out. And what's going to happen is they're not going to buy our bonds, and the Fed's going to start buying all the bonds, and the dollar is going to plunge. And this crisis is going to end up being a currency crisis. And when it becomes a currency crisis, then you're going to have higher consumer prices, and you're going to have higher interest rates. Right now, you know, we're creating a lot of inflation. A lot of people are talking about, oh, there's not inflation, it's deflation, right? That's all nonsense. Real estate prices are falling because they're too high. Stock prices are falling. But that's not deflation. That's just falling prices. There is no contraction of the money supply. It's growing like crazy. But the expansion of the money supply is not immediately showing up in rising prices for commodities or consumer goods because there are other temporary factors that are pushing prices down. At the same time, inflation is pushing prices up. You've got deleveraging, you've got bankruptcies, going out of business sales, you've got a lot of companies liquidating their inventory, and you have the dollar strong. And what happened was, paradoxically, when this crisis began, money flowed into America instead of fleeing America, which it will do ultimately. Can you imagine there's a giant, explosion and everybody's running towards the blast? That's what's going on. And when people look around the world and they say, well, people are coming to America because as bad as it is every place else, it's so much worse here. That's nonsense. That's just what they're saying to explain it. Just like they tried to justify the real estate bubble or the internet bubble. That's all nonsense. I mean, the reason it's so bad in the rest of the world is because they loaned us so much money and we can't pay them back. And now they're losing based on their bad loans. And what's really causing the global credit crunch is that we're borrowing so much money right now. We're crowding out everybody else. The fact that people are loaning us so much money means that private businesses around the world can't get capital. Why? Because it's all going to the U.S. government. That's why. So the world is suffering not because our economy is collapsing, but because they're foolishly trying to prop it up. And when they figure this out, then we're going to get a real economic crisis. Because when the dollar starts to plunge, and it will, then we're going to see prices rising sharply for consumer goods and interest rates rising. And if we think we have problems now, wait till we see how much worse they get when we throw rising consumer prices and rising interest rates into the mix. And there's nothing the government's going to be able to do about it. Right now, unemployed people are getting the benefit of lower prices. Imagine when you're out of work and your prices are going up. Because that's what's going to happen. And then this is going to be a real economic crisis. And then we're going to be in for very, very difficult choices. And unfortunately, the worst case scenario is one that is looking increasingly more likely, which is hyperinflation. And if we get that, right, that's where nobody will lend us money. And so the Fed buys all the bonds in order to keep interest rates down and to maintain deficit spending. And then the velocity of money really starts to pick up. Nobody is going to want our money. Not even American citizens will want our money. And they will try to spend it as quickly as they can. I mean, the government might try to keep it together a little bit longer with regulation. Maybe we'll have capital controls. Maybe they'll make it illegal for American citizens to do what I'm doing with my clients right now, buying foreign currencies, foreign stocks. Maybe they'll make it illegal to buy gold. As prices really start to contract, to escalate, private parties will try to make contracts with payment in gold or other currencies. Maybe the government will make that illegal. There might be stores or people that actually don't want to accept dollars because their value is dropping too rapidly. The government will make that illegal. And that means we'll have a black market. That means if you want to buy something, you'll have to buy it on the black market, just like they did in the Soviet Union. The only reason you could buy anything there was because you bought it illegally. A lot of these things are going to happen. I think early on, probably even in Barack Obama's first term of office, I think we're going to have price controls. I think prices will be rising so rapidly, maybe even by next year, that they're going to impose price controls on a number of products. Probably energy, probably gasoline, probably milk, bread, and I mean, we're repeating all the mistakes of the 1930s. We might as well repeat the mistakes of the 1970s. And so when they put on price controls, what's that going to be? Shortages, blackouts, long lines for gas, long lines for food, a lot of things are going to happen. I just mentioned that. I mean, everybody now, of course, is talking about the 1930s and saying, oh, no, we can't repeat the mistakes of the 30s. Well, that's exactly what we're doing. I mean, the popular notion is that we had a depression because Hoover was so irresponsible that he trusted the free market and he did nothing. And because he did nothing, we had a depression. And then Roosevelt rode to the rescue and saved the day with big government. Well, the reality, of course, is that we had a depression because, A, we had a Federal Reserve that was too easy in the 1920s and created a boom. And then when the boom bust, Hoover ignored the good advice of his Secretary of the Treasury, which maybe is the last time the Secretary of the Treasury ever gave anybody any good advice. And instead of allowing the free market to work, he came up with all kinds of crazy things to bail people out and to